But it's the week of USAID, the week of Doge, the Friday night order from this judge, forget his name now. So I couldn't get my hands on the proceedings, from beginning to end. But the bottom line is what is, I mean, it was a question of access to payment systems where people are asking who's in charge, who controls the purse strings, who gets to make these decisions, and how the hell does a state court get involved in dictating what is effectively executive federal policy? Can you flesh it out in terms that people are going to understand, like myself?
So what we've been predicting here is that when Trump tries to defang the deep state and tries to take away the excessive powers of the administrative bureaucratic state, that he would run into not only incredible hostility from the DC crowd, the think tanks, the policymakers, a lot of the politicians on the Democratic side, etc., but that he would also run into judicial hostility because this is the professional managerial class using licensure and credentialing, which is another way to say using the state, to enrich and empower themselves at the expense of the American people. And they did this originally under civil service reform, saying they were taking apart the corruption of the political machines of the late 19th century, the so-called spoil system of American politics, where he who wins gets the spoils. That what used to be the case is whoever was elected to run the executive branch got to hire who was working for the executive branch. In the name of stopping corruption, they decided that somehow it would be less corrupt to have an unelected bureaucracy permanently in positions of power, regardless of what the American people want. I've never understood how that's less corrupt, but that's what you're taught in school by your little political science teacher and history professor, because they are aligned with the same prejudices of political control and economic control toward the professional managerial class as possible. The professional managerial class's biggest allies are the judiciary, because like them, they're unelected. Like them, they don't face future elections. Like them, they come from the same professional managerial class. Like them, they share many of the prejudices of that professional managerial class towards licensures, towards credentialing, all of those things. So what I predicted way back in 2017 at the Pluriball in D.C., talking to the Trump folks, was that Trump was going to face an all-out war from the administrative bureaucratic state, and then the judiciary would come to its aid more often than not. And that's exactly what happened in Trump's first term. So the second term, he realizes the degree of entrenched hostility in this administrative bureaucratic state. These are people that are part of the executive branch of government, but that have become immune from political pressure. In fact, they're the ones who impose the political pressure, using their control of the think tanks, using their control over the federal bureaucracy, using their control over the media. And what USAID Doge work is disclosing is that, in fact, they have been literally bribing people with this level of control, of coercive control. It was known it was being done internationally. Anybody with their eyes open and any foreign leader knew exactly what USAID and NED were, that it wasn't there to help the poor people, that it wasn't there to educate the national, it wasn't there to promote democracy. Only an idiot would believe that. What it's there for is to entrench the deep state. When the CIA's budget got hamstrung in the 1970s, thanks to the House Committee on Assassinations and the Church Committee on Intelligence, Special Select Committee on Intelligence, they've been prohibited from spending the money directly for a lot of those projects that they like to do of propagandizing, getting pandemics out and about, destabilizing governments, running the world, basically, enabling. I had a friend of mine that got one of these grants to help women in the third world. And guess what the grant became? How to get them to buy Coca-Cola. That's how it translated at USAID. USAID has always been a crock. It doesn't aid anybody. This is my longtime argument against foreign aid, which is different than some others. It's that foreign aid ain't actually aid to foreigners. It's aid to the deep state to entrench its control around the world for its global corporate pals and defense industry pals, power-hungry freaks. And somewhere along the way, Trump figured that out and got Musk to go in with Doge to dig it out and to prove it. And they found it en masse. Legally, President Trump can absolutely shut down USAID. USAID was not started by Congress, not created by Congress. It was created by executive order. So the president can reassign or just completely destroy or create a new agency as much as he wants. So all of that is purely legal. But what's happening is people are finding the loosest and thinnest pretext to run to their pals in the judicial branch, say, stop Trump from doing what the American people want him to do. This is an old history of the judicial branch, of coming to the aid of oligarchic institutions against the interest of the American people. This is what the Supreme Court did in the 1850s in creating a civil war. The people in the North did not want, they wanted ex-slaves to be recognized as citizens. The Supreme Court said, no, we're not going to let you do that. And that gave us the Civil War. So it's similar. You have similar histories with the Supreme Court throughout its history, where it's defending the last vestiges of oligarchic institutions against the American people's will. What this New York judge did is he granted an emergency TRO, temporary restraining order, that prohibits the President of the United States from exercising his constitutional discretionary duties, that prohibits the Secretary of the Treasury from monitoring where his own money is going out of the Secretary of Treasury. That is how insane this judge's action is.
One thing, it's a question that I ask, and I don't know the answer because you read the conflicting sides. The argument or the rebuttal to it being created by executive order is it wasn't. It was created in virtue of the Foreign Assistance Act, which then led to the creation of USAID. And so the argument is that
just makes the USAID, what the Foreign Assistance Act did was not create USAID. It said, here's some money to the federal government to spend on foreign sources. And then John Kennedy created USAID with the purpose of actually doing that purpose. By the 1970s, it had completely shifted, and by the early 80s, fully shifted, because the CIA, USAID's budget is bigger than the CIA's. To give people an idea how big this budget is, most Americans have no idea that USAID even existed. And that's where legally the agency, the congressional constraint is where the money goes. And that's it. And in many of these cases, that congressional constraint was broad. It was limited in terms of how much it actually constrained. And I would note that one of the reasons why USAID got themselves in this position where they can't run to Congress for protection is because of how many Republicans they've antagonized over the years. When you antagonize people like Marco Rubio, who's your otherwise erstwhile ally in the deep state, you've really done great damage to your cause. But what they made two mistakes that ended up backfiring on them. One, people at USAID decided to align the deep state with creating boondoggles and special pet projects for the Democratic Party. So if you're a Democrat and you were politically connected, USAID got you money, one way, shape, or form. Didn't matter whether you were in the media, whether you're in the think tank industry, whether you're in academia, whether you just have a blog. The deep state became the Democratic Party patronage delivery machine. That was going to antagonize Republicans over time. They had previously been equally entrenched with the Bushite wing of the Republican Party, but not your normie wing of the Republican Party, because that part of the party's never been interested in giving away all our money to foreign governments or to the deep state or the administrative state. So that's part of the political problem they ran into. The second one was, you look at Joni Ernst from Iowa. She would love to be a deep state ally. The problem is the deep state has shut her out because the Democratic Party demanded it. So when you shut out the Ernsts and the Rubios of the world, you get no political cover from any Republicans. And that's what they're running into. The USA thought they would have congressional cover. They don't. So they can say, we think Congress has to do this. Well, Congress isn't saying that. Congress isn't choosing to take any legislative action. So Congress doesn't agree. What the problem is, they have no political support from the broad majority of the country. That's why, where are they going? They're going to Democratic state attorney generals to get them to file suit, going to the unions and going to the think tanks and NGOs that they're aligned with and getting them to file suit. The problem is, if the courts are going to maintain this standing construct that you have to have a certain kind of constitutional injury to sue, that they've used to gut all kinds of cases, including cases against vaccine mandates, there's no way any of these people have standing to sue. Historically, no taxpayer has standing to sue about where their money is spent. How do these people have standing to sue if that's going to be the doctrine? Again, I'm a critic of standing, don't believe in it. But if it's going to exist, it at least has to be applied consistently.
Well, Or it'll open up the window for people who now feel aggrieved that their taxpayer dollars were going to be squandered unbeknownst to them. But the question is this: the State Department budget is 50 some odd billion. USAID was 50 some odd billion. So that 1%, only 1% of the federal budget. How the hell does it not go audited? Like, how does it go unexposed or undisclosed to the American people for decades?
Fundamentally, it was a deep state operation, and so deep state intimidation prevented its meaningful inspection and review, though it was building up hostility in that process. It was cutting off allies on a partisan basis, because the second step they chose, which they chose really under the Obama administration, was to become the personal patronage machine of the Democratic Party that the Clinton Global Foundation had partially played before then during the Bush years, but USAID just took it to a different scale. And it should come as no surprise that the usual suspects and their organizations show up as major recipients of USAID. This includes George Soros-tied NGOs that have enabled illegal immigration to occur. This includes, Soros had some of his radio stations broadcasting out in California when ICE is coming to help people avoid and evade ICE raids. And the people he's helping avoid ICE raids, again, ICE right now is focused exclusively on dangerous criminals who are illegal aliens in the country. That's who he's protecting right now. Also not a big surprise. Guess who ends up being one of the biggest recipients of USAID? The guy who clearly doesn't need it, Bill Gates. So, so what you see is a monetary, some of us have been saying for a long time, follow the money and then stop the money. Follow the money will expose how the deep state operates on a functional basis. Stop the money will deep six the deep state's power, and it's the perniciousness of that power. The principal beneficiary of USAID being replaced within the State Department is the American people, because now it is subject to democratic controls, subject to regular supervision and restrictions, subject to the intentions of what Congress intended that money to go for. In addition, the second beneficiary is every foreign government around the world, because USAID is the leader of destabilization around the world. It is the number. Look at where their money goes, and you'll find overthrown country, overthrown country, overthrown country, overthrown country, overthrown country,
Well,
civil war, civil war, civil war.
I don't know if you saw the interview I did earlier today with Jordan Goudreau, who was partook in the attempted Maduro coup, and USAID was in there somewhere. At least I know that it came up in the discussion. But hold on, just in case anybody didn't hear this clip here, let me bring this up. This is Bill Gates. Let's get to. Well, I'm very nervous that it's going to cut
private sector work.
Here, hold on.
Ow. Well, Elon, his private sector work, has been very innovative, really fantastic. A lot of private sector people, when they get into government, they don't take the time necessarily to see what the good work is or why it's structured the way it is. So I'm a little worried, particularly with this USAID stuff. My foundation partners with USAID on nutrition and
vaccines,
getting vaccines out. And
we can stop it there. They partner with them.
The leading maker of fake meat is supporting nutrition. It's nutrition that's going to make sterilize you. It's nutrition that's going to, again, Bill Gates, by his own admission, has said all of his objectives concerning Gavi, concerning various vaccine institutes, the Gates Foundations, that his big obsession is limiting population. That's him. He wants massive numbers of millions of people dead or not to come into life. This is his own admission. He has said this repeatedly. He wants the population down from where it is. The only way you get it down from where it is a bunch of people don't come into life that otherwise would have, and some people die off in mass that are currently alive. That's who Bill Gates is. He's a eugenicist. He should be in prison. He should be, world enemy number one.